people want to celebrate joy and they want to celebrate people in their lives, but they don't always know how to do it. And that means that they can shy away from it sometimes. And so this is really thinking through how do you put that front and center and take a lot of what has already existed in the parenting world, but speak very specifically to a consumer, to a community that no one is talking to and doing it in an authentic way, right? So our tagline is for the dad in you, right? And so that's saying, hey, you have all these different parts of your identity, all these different intersectionalities, and we're going to speak to the dad in you in addition to everything else that you have going on, because when you become a dad, you don't stop being who you were previously.
Welcome to the Company of Dads podcast. I'm your host, Paul Sullivan. We're focused on lead dads, working moms, and how small changes at home or work can have a big impact on their lives. Each episode promises to deliver actionable advice on some area of concern at home or at work. Short, direct, again, actionable. 5 questions, 5 answers. Today, our guest is David Morgenstern, founder and CEO of Gaddies, a clothing brand focused on gay fathers. It's inspired by his own experience as a father of a young son and is rooted in his desire to celebrate gay dads. David knows a thing or two about building a brand, having held global leadership roles at Nike. He's also led the sneaker giant's Pride Employee Resource Group. David and his husband Raphael live in Portland, Oregon, where he roots for the Cleveland Cavaliers, which doesn't make much sense, and we'll probably just skip talking about it today. Welcome, David, to the Company
Paul, how are you?
podcast. I'm great. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
All right. I promise, 5 questions, 5 answers.
Yeah.
This first one doesn't count as question 1. Okay.
Nice.
Fun fact, but you start each day FaceTiming with your 100-year-old grandfather. So what did Boppy have to say today?
Today, Boppy wanted to know what Simon, my child, was eating for breakfast. I will say, once kiddo came into our lives, a lot of the calls, you're just sort of the vector to connect him with the great grandchild. So he wanted to know what Simon was eating for breakfast and if I had watched the Cavs win the other night. So connecting back to your point. He also did want to let me know that the heat in his apartment building is finally working again. So these are all very important.
Where does Boppy live?
He's in Cleveland, Ohio, still lives by himself in an independent apartment. And is the joy of a lot of people's lives.
Wow. What did he have? What did Bobby have for breakfast today? Did you?
So he says the trick to life is to have the massive heart attack in your late 70s, but survive it and then get the new heart and then just eat as much chocolate and salt as you want. He says those are the two. If anyone asks, he says those are the keys to being 100.
Oh, Bobby's words of wisdom.
Yes.
I love it.
Yeah.
All right, David. Question 1. As you know better than most from your days at Nike, successful brands are about so much more than selling stuff. So talk to us, what's the mission behind Gaddies, and why is this the moment for you to launch this brand?
Yeah, I think the reality is that, gay and queer dads have always existed, right? For as long as there have been parents. But we're in this special moment now where there's this opportunity to really take that to the next level. And I think for me, becoming a parent and part of the community that you're building here is the reality that like parenting is very lonely, right? And it can be especially even more lonely when you're a subset of that. So being a gay parent and saying, hey, where's community? Where are role models? Where can I connect with people? And sort of leveraging my background in business and the brand space and saying, how could we create something that lets us be a signal, that lets us be a wink to those in the know and put some identity around it. And I think a lot of the brand is rooted in acknowledging before 2024, before Portland, Oregon, this couldn't have existed, right? So speaking to the fight that got us here, the fight that's still happening today, and the immense diversity and intentionality that exists across gay dads.
I love it. If you distilled, Nike, of course, has the famous, just do it. And it kind of inspires people for the sort of athlete within, even though most of us are not, LeBron James. There you go. I'll give you a little former Cleveland Cavalier guy there. When you think about the thing that distills, this brand for you and why it's going to appeal to gay dads, but also, in a previous conversation we had, people who may want to, buy a shower present when a baby comes around. What really distills it down to its essence?
Yeah, I think it's this notion of celebrating and validating. And I think we were talking earlier to the point around gifting of people want to celebrate joy and they want to celebrate people in their lives, but they don't always know how to do it. And that means that they can shy away from it sometimes. And so this is really thinking through how do you put that front and center and take a lot of what has already existed in the parenting world, but speak very specifically to a consumer, to a community that no one is talking to and doing it in an authentic way, right? So, our tagline is for the dad in you, right? And so that's saying, hey, you have all these different parts of your identity, all these different intersectionalities, and we're going to speak to the dad in you in addition to everything else that you have going on. Because when you become a dad, you don't stop being who you were previously. And that's definitely something that specifically, in the gay and queer community is like, oh, if I become a parent, what do I lose? And that's not something that is unique to us, but because there haven't been role models or there haven't been generations of parents to learn from, that's certainly a question that you hear a lot. And when I did decide to do this, there's not a lot of data on us, right? So you sort of
Yeah.
have to go and do a lot of primary qualitative and quantitative as well. And so probably talk to, at this point, like 150 dads around the country. And that's one of the pieces that they said is I didn't know who I was going to become because I didn't have something to see. And so I think the cool thing about this brand is being able to give younger generations visibility of, oh, hey, if I want to become a parent, I can do that. And this is what the act of parenting looks like. Then speaking directly to those of us that are parenting, whether your kid is 1 month old or 20 years old. And then I think one of the really beautiful things is the connection that you get with older generations
Mhm.
because this wasn't possible for them. And so
Yeah.
sometimes those are unspoken conversations that happen, and sometimes they're direct conversations as well. And that's been one of the really amazingly beautiful parts of this, even just a couple months into it.
David, I love that nuanced answer, but I'm going to dad splain here for a
Great.
second because there is something that all dads lose. Actually, three things that they
Yeah.
lose when they
Perfect.
become
Let's do
dads.
it.
Okay, ready?
Yeah.
One, sleep. Two, the ability to wake up on your own terms, I guess related to number one. And three, the confidence that you're going to be able to sleep through the night uninterrupted. So I guess all three really relate, but it's really
Yeah.
you have to like I become a master, David, at doing simple math in my head. Like, okay, if I go to bed now, what is the probability that I'll get close to 7 hours of sleep? So that
Yeah.
I believe is
I
is
would say the whole week. So we have one child, and so my husband and I rotate off on the weekend. So I take off from Friday night at 8 p.m. until Saturday at 10 a.m. And he takes off Saturday 8 p.m. until Sunday at 10 a.m. So most of my week is spent looking forward to Friday night
oh
at 8.
yeah.
And then that weekly decision of like, I'm gonna go do things. And then it's like 7:45 on Friday, and you're like, or I'm gonna not do anything and I'm gonna go to sleep. But also a lot of times it is going out. And it's funny talking with when I go out in gay and queer spaces, I don't talk about my kid because then that's all people want to talk about. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm here to not talk about my child. But it's sort of opposite when I talk with some of the older gay dads and who said, hey, previously I didn't talk about my kid because then you would just get shunned. So you have this like very interesting, even in these like micro generational changes of how that happens.
Yeah, good. Question two. We've got a good number of married and single gay dads as part of the Company of Dads community. And, one thing I've heard repeatedly is that they've often felt, doubly excluded from parenting resources. One, as a gay man, and two, as dads without a mom to sort of wade into the community resources that all seem to default to moms. How have you navigated this world as a father, and what tips do you have for other dads trying to just be the best dad they can be, knowing
Mm,
that so many of the resources are really controlled by by moms and communities.
that's a great question. So I think I'd probably answer that two different ways. One is who's the parent that I want to be, and the second is like what's the reality of actually parenting? Because I think in the first, you're trying to be mindful of, and I think specifically like in the gay and queer community, you are mindful of we've created these spaces for ourselves, right? And the power of being able to go and be within community and sort of being yourself. And I think a lot of time that applies into mostly the mom spaces, right? Of wanting to navigate, am I intruding? How am I putting this together? Although I will say for Gaddies, part of it is we have our Gaddie baddies, right? Which are the moms and the women who had gay friends growing up and now they're a parent and they want to show their kids different kind of loves, or some of them are very explicit about being like, I want gay dad friends. Will you be my friend? I would not say that's like the
Do you have a
best
waiting? Do
approach
you have a
to.
waiting list for
I
that? Like, I
do.
don't
It
know. Like,
is,
what's
yeah,
there's
Simon
an
is in charge of our
initiation
social
fee.
calendar. And I'm like, we're actually booked
No,
until
no, 529
2027.
plans. They make a donation into Simon's
See,
529 plan. Boom. Okay.
the business reporting news is coming back in. Or I could be like, actually, friendship comes with purchasing this amount of
Right.
Gaddy's product. I should probably put that in together. I think a lot of it depends on like what is your community and where are you is sort of a nuanced answer. We live in a place where there are a lot of varieties of families in our school and in our community. So there is this intermixing a little bit, but it can be very strange to your point of not wanting to interlude. And then I think for folks, a lot of it depends also how you came into fatherhood, right? I think for some people, for some gay and queer dads, women, non-binary, femme folks were their community, right? So that's sort of like who they are used to interacting with. For some people, it was used to interacting with the dads, and for some people, it was somewhere in between. And so I think that can impact a lot of the experience based on like how you come into that. And sometimes you just got to say, we're not doing this differently. Like there was an event with us where it was cigar night for the dad and then like nails night for the mom.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm not going to cigar night. Right. And so, um, and also all the moms from school already know that my nails are already done. Right. So
Yeah.
you can sort of like put those pieces together, but there definitely is I find more uncomfortableness with some of just the like how we say this is what men have to be and this is what fathers have to be. Because you also get a lot of dads talking to you of, I don't want to do this either. Right. So
Yeah.
that's the other thing. You get like a lot of like, we become the safe space in some elements where they're like, this is dumb. And I actually don't want to be doing this. But if you could be the one to say why this is dumb, I would love that because I don't want to do that. So that can be challenging to navigate too.
I've got kids, 7 to 15,
Yeah.
and the default, a married straight dad, like, let's go out and have a beer night. I'm like, man, I don't want to have any beers. Beers make me fat. Like, I want to do something that is
Like, and then
more
the gay dads will
interesting.
judge me. So you need
Right,
to
exactly. And then I'll be
not.
judged.
Yeah, we can't do that.
I'm being judged. Shit,
Yeah.
damn it.
All the time.
That. I've told a version. Question 3. I've told a version of this story before, but I've got this great friend, Dr. Ramon, who reached out to me after moving out from Brooklyn to Connecticut, and he really struggled. He moved out here like everybody does. He and his husband, also a doctor, they moved out because they wanted more space. There
Yeah.
wasn't anything. They wanted more space. They wanted to be able to send their kids to public school and all this. And of course, they go into this space, and this well-meaning mom comes up and says, trying to help you out here. We got this Facebook group in town. Which one of you is the mom? To which he says, "What the fuck?" We're both dads, and the woman's apologetic. She doesn't know how to say anything. She doesn't know what to do. And I
Yeah.
said, Dr. Ramon, I know that's offensive. Obviously, it's offensive. But what that woman was trying to do is invite you into the Facebook moms
Yeah.
group for your town.
Yeah.
That's the source of all knowledge. And this guy went to Harvard Medical School. I said, Dr. Ramon, you got a better shot at getting into Harvard Medical School than you do getting into that Facebook moms group. So you're going to listen to your Irish Catholic friend, and you're going to go guilt the hell out of her, and she will then let you in. Not only did she let him in, but she changed the name of the group to a parenting group. I was like, okay, that's a win. But one of the tougher places, and this is question 3, one of the tougher places to get that win is on the school forms, and I was messing around with Dr. Ramon. I said, what you do is you just put, doctor and his last name, and then your husband, he just puts doctor and his last name. And this will cause the heads of the people in school and at the dentist office, it'll cause their heads to explode because they will try to look and find the name of a mom in there because they always want to call the mom. How do you navigate this? How do you navigate something that, to some listeners, it may seem, small, why do you care? But I know my wife who's super busy. She hates being, called on something from the pediatrician because she didn't make the appointment. She didn't know what's going on. She's in a meeting. So, as a married gay dad, how have you navigated this? And what advice would you give to, both those, form creators and phone callers from schools and doctors' offices, but also, to dads in general that want to make sure that they're the ones that get called first?
Yeah. So actually, I think elevate that up for a second because I think you hit on a really interesting point that is, gay dads have to decide where and how to come out every day, all of the time, right? So there is an innate safety issue that's underlying in the question that you just asked of, do I feel comfortable answering this question in reality? Or do I feel comfortable when you're at the pharmacy or you're at the restaurant and someone is like, where is the mom? And you have to in real time make those decisions of, do I just say, oh, she's in the bathroom, or oh, she is Raphael, right? And I think for
You
lots of
you no, you
folks,
could really fuck with them. You could say, "Do you remember that plane that flipped over when it landed? She was on that plane. She didn't
oh,
make it." And you're
we're
like,
going. Well, I'll leave
"Oh, but
that one for
everybody
you.
survived. Everybody
Yeah,
survived on
everyone's
that
fine.
plane."
That's
But
fair.
nobody pays attention to the news. You're like, "Oh my god, I just feel awful. How did I just have it?"
We're survivors. And like I would say again, for me, a lot of it depends on where's the environment and sort of if
Yeah,
I'm in a place where I'm existing in my little bubble, I would say I have a little less patience than my husband and a lot of other folks. But just I think that's important to say that like all of these questions are actually wrapped up under a much bigger element of, do I feel safe being honest and open with
yeah,
where I am, and that can change in a day no matter where you go, right? I think to your actual question, getting back to it,
yeah,
is this notion of, hey, what if we just all moved into using terms that apply to everyone in general? And I think like a lot of forms of allyship or bringing people in together, it's the things that can happen ahead of times. I would say I definitely hear from a lot of dads who go to schools and the forms say mom and dad. And many times they are the first gay family that they might have had there, right? And I think you can get a very clear indication of what is the response when you do say, would love to see the say parent one or parent two for a variety of reasons.
yeah.
That can tell you a lot, and then just sort of continue that forward.
Love that. Question four is really, following along on that, and it can you can answer it either from the corporate space or the community space. But as a married straight dad, I hear stupid stuff all the time from moms and dads. I hear it when I give talks, at companies. This could, it's a lot of stuff in the community is presuming, that mom is in charge. A lot of stuff in companies is, if there's a parental leave policy, why would the dad possibly want to take this parental leave policy?
Yeah,
I didn't take that policy when, I was in your role 25 years ago. Look,
yeah,
what's the stupidest stuff that people have asked you and your husband? And then let's put a positive spin on that, presuming the person saying those things isn't inherently stupid, but just say nervous or unsure of what to say. What advice do you give to those people in the community and in the companies to say things that, don't put somebody on the defensive?
yeah. So I think to the first question, I would say that like, and this is part of what you're driving the change right now, but like society still has the lowest expectations for males as caregivers. And so just
Look,
the
I did
golf
not drop
claps.
my child. Look at that. I carried my
Look
child.
look
I
at
did
you.
not
You
drop
didn't
her.
call it
Look at that.
babysitting. You called
That's
it
right.
parenting.
That's right.
Mind blown, right? So I think like that's one thing that is very unique for our experience, especially when the two of you are together. I will say that before we had our child, friends warned us like, hey, you're gonna get mostly moms coming up to you saying, as a mom, this is how I would do this. And that definitely happens. And you do that initial read of what's going on. A lot of times I just say bless your heart and sort of keep it moving, trying to live there. But like that's real and that exists. And so that's where something being like a gay dad couple, very different than a lesbian or queer mom couple where they're just getting righted the entire time of like you get
Mm.
two people of society telling you you're doing such a bad job and you have such high expectations. Where for us, they're like, just for now. I will say the greatest part about being a gay dad is flying on planes because the service that you get from the gay and queer flight attendants is the most elite airline status that you can't buy. Like that is, they're like, do you need anything else? Are you okay? Do you want to get upgraded? I'm like, this is great. So those people, those pieces like all come together. And then I think to the second question of like, how do you respond and what do you do? I mean, sometimes it's just saying like, I don't understand. Can you tell me
Mm.
that? But a lot of it is how much patience do you have that day? How much sleep did you get that night? Honestly, sometimes it's, do I want to make this person feel badly? I will say I'm in a couple of text chains with buddies from growing up or from college who are all dads, and I'm the only gay dad. And my only job in those is to be the chaos agent, to be like, did any of you do anything productive for your wife or your children today? Or, they will say really stupid things. It's like they forget I exist and they will make all of these comments. And my job is to play back like their comments around the patriarchy or how rude what they were saying, and then wait for who's going to respond first. But those are some of my favorite parts of the day, is being like, I need you to be better. Like, I know
Well,
that
but
you could be better.
these text chains though from when we were kids. I'm in this group of 3 guys that I went to high school with,
Yeah.
and we all revert to being
Yeah.
14 years old.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm like, yeah, here we are. So, I don't know if that sort of fully
I had
answers
a question
the
though. Like,
question.
when you were at Nike, you were you leading the Pride of Employee resource group. When you think of someone, and Nike has an image of it of being a progressive company. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. But what were some of the things that you were able to accomplish through that Pride ERG that you're proud of, that made a difference at Nike?
Yeah. So one thing I'm super proud of was working directly with our chief executive and C-suite to implement gender inclusive shopping experiences in stores and the creation of new products built for all bodies. And that was leading with data, and that was leading with, here's the consumer, right? The consumer today, they don't care if something's a men's shirt. They don't care if something's a women's shirt. They don't care if it's a kid's shirt. They want to go and make it their own. And to be the brand speaking directly to them, that was a line of work where, you're able to directly influence and change things that maybe in some previous employee groups, really didn't happen. So there was that. There was certainly passing new transgender support policies for employees, and then a lot of it was supporting and bringing things to life. But definitely the creation of those in-store experiences, the product, like that was true bottom line business experience that we were able to say we had a real impact there, which was pretty exciting.
Yeah. Question 5, fifth and final question. As you said, we at the Company Dads, we exist to welcome all the dads because we know this isn't an easy or as yet normalized role. But at the times when you felt most authentically accepted as a dad, what was that environment like? And how can, others help create or recreate that environment for gay dads?
Mm-hmm. Mostly, I think it's just focusing on our kid, right? And that, hey, look at this happy, healthy kid that is a byproduct of the home that they're coming in for, and focusing less on who specifically is doing all the work. And it was funny, the other night, our kid was like, oh, when I go to sleep, do you do the cleaning and all these things? I'm like, yes, I do, because you're not doing it. But I think it's speaking to them, and then speaking to us, that is asking questions about our kids that are not in a judgmental way, but really focused on like, hey, this is what your family looks like, and let's talk about it.
But it's okay, like if they see your son and say something like, hey, David, why is he not wearing Nikes? Is that an okay question? Or would that never happen?
Because he's wearing Cleveland Cavaliers gear, and that is because he's wearing Gaddies. That's what that's what he's doing. We tried to do a photo shoot, and the number of lollipops that it took to try to get like one photo out of him. The photographer was like, your child is adorable. Your child is also clearly hard-headed as shit and would never listen to anyone. So I don't think you should try to turn them into a professional model. And I was like, that was never the plan, but they definitely keep us. He definitely keeps us on our toes.
Love it. David Morgenstern, founder and CEO of Gaddies, a clothing brand focused on gay fathers. Thank you so much for being my guest today on the Company Dads podcast.
Amazing. Thanks, Paul.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Company of Dads podcast. I really appreciate you tuning in week after week. Just want to use this moment here to thank the people who make it possible. Number one, of course, Helder Mira, who is our podcast editor. We also have Skip Cherryholmes, who many of you know from the Lead Dad Diaries. He's taken over our social media. Terry Brennan is helping us with our audience development, and Emily Servin is there each and every day helping with the web development. I can't do any of this without an amazing board of advisors. So I just want to say thank you to all of you who help, and I want to say thank you to everyone who listens, and hopefully you'll tune in again next week. Thanks so much.